I'd like to bring the meeting to order, and I'm going to ask Reverend Alderman Davis to please do the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. And if you haven't been here for a while, that's the flag we do the Pledge of Allegiance on.
Let us pray. Almighty, most loving, and generous God, we thank you for this beautiful, bright, clear day, and for the blessings of all days that you so generously give to Southport. Today that we ask that you guide us to make good and right decisions that make us worthy of all your blessings. Amen.
All right, before we start public comment, I would like to introduce you all to our new interim manager, Noah, and to our deputy clerk, who's going to be sitting in for all of these meetings, Mr. Vaney over here, who is will be taking all the notes and stuff like that. And if you make public comment and you want to have feedback on that public comment, please make sure that she has your contact information so that we can give you back information, because you know during public comment, we normally do not say anything to you, which some people think means we're not listening to you, but that's not the case. So if you want specific, if you're just giving us information, that's great. If you're looking for an answer to a question, please make sure that Mr. Vaney has that information so we can get back to you. And with that, I will entertain a motion to go into public comment.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any conversation? Not seeing any. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Ma'am?
We have Mr. Warren Whitley.
Now we're on. Hi, Warren Whitley, 432 Cades Trail. I'm here to talk about the Cades Cove PUD process. I did have 25 pages, but I culled it down a little. So, a majority vote by the residents to privatize and gate the roads in Cades Cove does not mean it's a good decision to support this move. The planning board voted not to approve it for very good reasons, and it would also go against traffic connectivity as addressed in the comprehensive plan. It's also hypocritical for the HOA to say they want to be part of the city and engaged and then gate the community to outsiders. Why should I bother to pay city taxes if I live in a private enclave? The expense argument by a couple of aldermen last meeting should not be the basis for the decision. We are city taxpayers, and the original plat indicated that the streets would eventually be the city's responsibility. Why would I, as a resident, want to take on the expense of maintaining roads over and above my taxes? The board is partly culpable for this mess and should work to fix it. The reason there is no precedent in North Carolina for this type of action is because it's a bad idea. It would be unfair to the residents and will place an unfair tax burden on the tax-paying residents, so we get double jeopardy. All decisions of this magnitude should have alternatives to consider. Here's 3 for you to consider. 1, approve the streets as is in the subdivision. They are better than the vast majority of the streets in Southport. And there's no immediate fiscal impact to the city budget. Approve the acceptance of Cades Trail and Lord Thomas now and to maintain connectivity and phase in the other streets down the road. C, do nothing. Leave the burden of infrastructure maintenance to the residents already paying taxes and make them pay more money. Can you imagine what the assessment will be if we need to repave all the roads in Cades Cove? I couldn't afford it. To address Lowe's comments last time, the Cades Cove issue was caused by the premature exit by Cardinal Builders and became the driving reason to change the UDO to not allow building permits to be issued until all infrastructure was completed, inspected, and accepted by the city. So that issue has been addressed. The comments about safety and traffic are basically just hysterics and not based on reality. I sit on my porch on Cades Cove quite often and rarely see a lot of traffic passing by. And most of the neighborhood gets almost no traffic because there are no areas that people need to drive through. Will we see an increase because Indigo 2 goes through the neighborhood when Indigo 2 is constructed? Maybe, but if we do, it'll be incremental because they're not going to put all those houses in at once. Where's the data? Nobody's done any studies that I'm aware of. But basically, this decision should be a rational one and not based on emotion. The pragmatic choice is to fix the problem for residents already paying taxes and who expected Cades Cove Street to be city streets per the original plan and permit approvals. Thank you for your time. And I'm not going to be rude. I got to run off and go to work in a minute.
Next one, ma'am.
Mr. Terry Duff.
I'm going to start over again. Good afternoon. My name is Terry Duff. I reside on 6519 Walden Pond Lane. I'm here to speak to two issues regarding the 440-acre tract that was annexed by the city back in 2006. I know the North NCWRC is here today, so perhaps there'll be some updates later on during this presentation. So the two questions I have, and maybe one is directed to you, Todd, and I don't expect an answer today, but I would like an answer fairly soon. When I was up here speaking to the aldermen and the mayor several months ago, I found an issue with one of the, I'll call it a covenant, I'll call it a city rule that allowed hunting on that property. Subsequent to that, and we had a commitment from Bonnie Thiernan, who was the city manager at that point in time, that they took down that covenant, and perhaps that's the wrong terminology, but it allowed hunting on that property. And it was a club that was comprised primarily, I think, of firemen. Allegedly, that was taken down. And I don't know, so I need an answer. Was it actually taken down? And the reason I'm asking is somebody was hunting there last Saturday morning. When I heard a gunshot, I walked over there on public property, and I confronted the gentleman coming out of the woods carrying his 12-gauge shotgun. I said, you know, are you allowed to hunt on here? And he told me, it's none of your blank business. So I'd like to understand if the city can clarify or quantify who is allowed to hunt on that property. Do I have to wait for an answer? Not sure. I'm trying to get to root cause because this has been going on year after year, and it appears that the can keeps being kicked down the road.
It is my understanding, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and not the board, that the club that had that use of that is no longer have that use of the facility. And so I don't know who that was.
Okay, so and thank you for that update.
Yeah.
So what is the city's outlook? Who is allowed to hunt on city-owned property, firearms specifically?
Well, not having...
I don't expect you to, I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
Just so we can put this to rest, not having the city attorney sitting to my left, as we normally do, it is, once again, I speak for myself and not for the city. There's nobody who's supposed to be hunting on that property. Now, that property is separated from the city proper, and I suppose that somebody could go over there and just do their own hunting, like they do all over North Carolina, and that's what happens until we have the exchange of the property to somebody else.
Okay, and I appreciate those headlights. It is
So if you
most-
see that, you can certainly call 911 and make sure that they understand that you're talking about city-owned property, and the city police can go out there and enforce whatever rules that they need to enforce.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
And what I'm trying to avoid is wasting Todd and his collective team, wasting time to go out there and chase somebody. If they're not supposed to be there, great. But I don't want to waste city assets having somebody go out there and confront somebody who may have permission. So I think what I just heard is there's no firearms allowed on city property. Again, if the attorney has to answer me, that's fine.
At the end of the conclusion of this meeting, I will converse with the chief of police to confirm, that what I just gave you is correct. Okay?
Very good. I appreciate the headlights. The second question I have is I submitted a request to the city for specific records regarding that property. On the form that I filled out, again, it's a city-issued forms, it said they would respond within 10 days. So what happens when this is now day 13? What do I do to get city records? I followed the process.
So that would fall under my previous office as clerk, so I will follow up with you on that request and get that request moving for you.
Good, outstanding. Okay, very good. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Madam Clerk, anything else?
Miss Laura Sharkey?
I'm Laura Sharkey. I live at 432 Cades Trail. I'm here to speak about traffic management today. As a term that was brought up and defined Thursday's meeting. The consultant that's working on the comprehensive plan had a question by one of the aldermen, what is traffic management? It is one of the big issues he pointed out in the comprehensive plan. The best of my understanding, traffic management would be to manage traffic, not let it be a traffic jam, to avert traffic when possible from overburdened roadways, to facilitate movement of vehicles and people throughout the city, to make things better, make things more conducive to citizens' well-being. This directly relates to the zoning request for Cades Trail by the Cades Cove HOA. Traffic management should be the heart of this decision. Planning board already ruled to deny that because of the hindrance a gate in that neighborhood would cause on traffic flow. It would not be to the best interest of the citizens at large. When we just look at one street or one little neighborhood and bend to that will, we are not doing what may be best for the city at large. It's important to remember we need to have different avenues of travel to important places. And in this one area, the important place I would say is the plaza that houses the senior center, Galloway Sands Pharmacy, and a dialysis center. People use the thoroughfare through Cades Trail, Cades Cove, when House Street is at a standstill. They should. They may need to go to dialysis. They may need to pick up their prescription. They may need services at senior center. They may be dropping off somebody who can't drive there themselves. They're providing somebody else's service. And when they're confronted with standstill traffic on House Street, but they need to get to that plaza, the logical choice is to go through Cades Cove. When the building plans were approved, it showed that those roads would connect, and it was approved that way. And that was because there was an understanding that it would assist with traffic management. We should stay the course. with what the original plan was so that we can serve the greater good of the community. That's the overall arching goal of government, I hope, and the people we elect to the Board of Aldermen. Thanks.
Mr. Charlie Hess.
I really don't need this microphone with my voice, but I wanted to come and kind of echo what Warren and Laura said in regards to, they did a good job with their presentation. I'm just going to talk about the safety and emergency aspect of getting in and out in case of an emergency. Our neighborhood is getting impacted by all the development going on Robert Rourke Drive. They probably might even eventually call Robert Rourke another city. It's getting so busy. But I'm really concerned with the fact that if we cut down any kind of exit or evacuation route off of Robert Rourke Drive, that it's going to impact the future of that intersection up there on Howe Street. Laura made a good comment about the dialysis and how people sometimes probably have to get to and from that plaza up there behind the senior center in regards to people that need to get there quickly. I know they talk about the 1,000-year storm that we had back in the fall. I think that's a common occurrence that we're going to be dealing with off and on. But we had a gridlock in this town, and I mean, it was a complete shutdown of traffic all the way around the community. And to limit access through a neighborhood just to cut down on traffic flow, I think we're missing the whole point. We're a community here. We really need all to work together for the common good of everybody in Southport. That's all I got to say.
That's all.
I'll entertain a motion to close public comment.
So, second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Public comment is closed. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. The first agenda item is Caves Cove rezoning and the PUD modification. Wendell, you are up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good afternoon, board members. Today's hearing is really simple. It's basically a continuation of December's meeting. The question at hand is, are you as the board going to vote in favor of or against putting a gate at the Robert Rourke and Caves Cove entrance? The background in the case is Caves Cove is accessed by Robert Rourke and Lord Thomas Street by way of North Caswell Avenue. Across from Robert Rourke Drive, there are several PUD developments with multifamily units to the south, along with the multifamily apartments along North Caswell Avenue. Also adjacent are residentially zoned Brunswick County parcels. When reviewed by staff, this request was found to be inconsistent with the Unified Development Ordinance and the 2014 CAMA Land Use Plan due to the balanced needs of the community and the interconnectivity of the area subdivisions. After consideration and public input, the Planning Board has forwarded a recommendation of denial of the applicant's request. And that concludes my petition.
Does anybody on the board have any questions of Wendell?
I will after we hear from the Cades HOA.
Well,
I just have one.
Rebecca,
before we
you
go
go.
there. I remember hearing something about the road dedication We talked about that last time, and I think I heard something changed about that. Can you update us on road dedications?
Yes, so essentially, as it stands, if you accept the gates, the road dedication, the formality of it will change from public to privates. But that's not the driving factor of the vote today.
I thought there was some sort of legal paperwork that was filed that would possibly prevent us from being able to take the roads?
I did not catch that. I apologize. That's not part of what I studied for in prepping for this presentation. I did not know that, so I do apologize.
You're right, and I think it was 4 of the 9, if I'm not mistaken.
And in particular, based on documents that we received, it is the road on which the one gate that they wish to install is located. So it's a private road now. And I don't think that we can force them to do anything that they don't want to do with a road that they own. It's not a city road anymore, or ever was, actually, but it's definitely. Everything's been signed, sealed, and delivered to the Register of Deeds last month, I think.
Yeah, that's not, I don't think that's the discussion, that's not what's up for discussion today. Today is if I'm not it's a map amendment. It's a map amendment.
Correct. Yes.
What does the map amendment call for, Wendell, exactly?
So essentially, in changing or approving the gates, you're changing the master plat. And originally, when it was platted, the subdivision was platted as a PRD, a planned residential development. So we no longer have that classification. It would be changed to planned unit developments. That's the change. Ma'am.
And would that then eliminate the issue of whether they could put a gate there?
No, that's part of the conversation. I think the way it works out is if you put the gate there, then the map amendment happens, but not the other way around.
The streets can remain private with no map amendment. So they could remain private with no map amendment. So we could do that.
But would they then be able to put up a gate without us saying yea
No,
or nay?
Negative.
the
We would
map
have to
amendment,
change,
yeah.
sorry, that would require a changement of the master plan.
So there was kind of 2 parallel discussions, so whether it's public or private, they're still subject to the UDO. So the kind of legal determination was there was some conversation in should the city accept or not accept those streets. They, of course, didn't want the city to accept those streets, but then Mr. Herman, the attorney, went and did that review to say that they had moved those streets to private anyway. So you still have to determine based on the UDO, which they're still subject to, and do you want the gate or do you not want the gate?
That's correct. Thank you.
So if we want to let them exercise their right to have a gate on their private property, then we would approve this. Is that correct?
Pardon, one more time, ma'am?
Yeah.
Make sure that this neighborhood has can put up the gate on their private road. We need to vote yes on this amendment, or do we need to vote no?
Well, there's 2 motions here.
Yes.
And so, yes, what we heard from our planning department is that this is not consistent with the CAMA land use plan, right?
Correct.
So, or the UDO. So that's what came from the planning.
I understand that, Robert, but the real question is, there's a motion before us. And I'm not sure, I'm going to ask the manager this, I'm not sure if you vote yes to this draft language, what results from that yes and what results from a no, because the language here for the average person, and I am the average person, I'm not sure what it says to me. So,
It's kind of
Mr. Manager, if a vote of yes was to do this, what results from a yes?
So a result from the yes would be the gate. A vote
Exactly.
of no would be no gate.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the roads being private or not private are not part of the
That's
discussion.
right.
So,
That's already been determined by the HOA and the attorney, and that's done.
Correct.
So then my question is, were the roads dedicated as private legally when this was before the planning board? Did the planning board have that as part of their discussion?
Negative. So from my understanding, the roads are dedicated as public, but they were never adopted as such.
So the planning board had before them public roads, even though they were not adopted. However, since then, those roads have become private, and this is not, so the planning board sent us a recommendation based on old information.
That's right.
Correct.
The planning board did not have this new information. Okay, I just want to be sure I didn't hear it very well.
are you suggesting we send it back to the planning board?
I'm suggesting that we use our brains.
Well, I mean, we don't need to send it back to
Since
the
when?
planning board since it's still a UDO amendment issue.
That's correct, ma'am.
What I would say about the conversation about the motion is looking for the, it says the applications, we shall consider the following. The application's consistency to the general policies and objectives of the city's comprehensive plan and any other official adopted plan, and the UDO. And B, potential impacts or benefits on surrounding area and adjoining properties.
That's correct, ma'am.
That's what we base our decision
ma'am.
on today.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the information that planning staff gave us in our packet.
Can
So,
you just reread that, both of those, if you don't mind?
the Board of Aldermen shall consider the following: the application's consistency to the general policies and objectives of the city's comprehensive plan, any other officially adopted plan that is applicable, and the Unified Development Ordinance. B, the potential impacts and/or benefits on the surrounding area and adjoining properties. And just so we know, the Planning Board recommended denial of the proposed changes because the proposal is this is what came from the Planning Board. The proposal is inconsistent with our comprehensive plan and unreasonable due to the attributes of the area proposed to be rezoned and detriments to the neighbors and surrounding community. So that's what we got from the Planning Board.
And just as a reminder for everybody, that is a recommendation and not a directive.
Correct.
Yes. Any other questions of Wendell?
Well, I think to that point, and I'm sorry I wasn't prepared for this, but maybe when I have some free time, I'll go back and look at how many times this board, all of us collectively, have mentioned the comp plan and how important it is and why we look to it for guidance. So I just kind of keep that in mind. And I'll go ahead and make a motion to deny the land use consistency statement and zoning map amendment.
A second.
Okay, he's denying a motion to deny the motion, motion to deny the land use consistency statement and zoning map. So that says essentially no gate. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And the purpose of that is to go back to what we have been charged with, and then also keep in mind that when the development was developed, it was developed in that way for a reason. So when it was approved, the connectivity that exists today was developed that way for a reason.
That's exactly correct, sir. When it was reviewed, that was one of the major questions about the review was the connectivity. That's part of any subdivision review, is how is its connectivity going to be, and not just for the time being, but for generations after.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second to that motion?
A second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I would like us to think about the impact not only of the adjacent properties, but the property owners that we are considering during this. The impact to them is great. It is significantly less for those adjacent properties.
Well, that's, how do you qualify that? How do you qualify that?
Financial.
And what about the folks on Fodale and Stewart? I know those are public roads, I know they're ours, but those people come in here relentlessly asking for relief.
And if they want to privatize those roads, that's a different conversation.
One of the things too to keep in mind is if this gate goes up, then you have Southport Way, Bonnet's Way, and Osprey Landing, which are all parts of Southport. The only connectivity to our town is going to be Howe Street, the intersection of 87 and Howe, that's going to be under construction with the widening project conceivably till 2027. So we're sending, just to be clear, there's also been discussion about the kinds of gates and what would be allowed through and that sort of thing. And the two gates that were given as examples in our packets do not have a province for people getting through, except the one at Old Southport has a door with a keypad on it. But I want us to know that the Old Southport neighborhood keeps their gate open all day long, starting at 7 a.m., and they close it at 7 p.m. or later, depending on if it's summer. So when we start talking about, and I appreciate, I mean, this is a mess. I don't disagree this isn't a mess, but long-term future of the city, connectivity, long-term future of the city is better if we work with the HOA to figure out how to adopt the roads so it takes the burden long-term off of them financially. That's not a good solution, but gating it is a whole nother conversation. And we talked about bicycle access and pedestrian access. That was in our packet. But then we talked about golf cart access, but that's not in any of the documentation. And you would have to have a 6-foot wide opening on each side of the gate to allow golf carts to pass through. That golf carts can't bump up on the sidewalk. I'm assuming our laws apply there too. You can't just drive a golf cart on the sidewalk. And quite honestly, bicycles aren't even supposed to be ridden on the sidewalk if you're over 15 years old. You know, they expect us adults to be in the road with our bikes. So this whole gate thing, I appreciate everything, and I am not minimizing any of this, but there has to be a better solution long-term. We're talking about roads and paying for roads, and that's the sticking point, then it's incumbent on us to figure it out. But a gate is not in the best interest of the community.
Well, there's two things that can happen here. And one is, if we ever figure out a better way of doing this, I suppose the gate could come down if they figured it out and they wanted it. The second thing is, there's actually going to be, as much as I hate to say this because it's going to impact me, but there's actually going to be a second north-south corridor to get into the downtown section. You'll be able to flow from Robert Rourke all the way down to 9th Street by another road. And that's the road that's going to be built in Waterview or Indigo 2 or whatever you want to call it. So there is access to get out of there. And for the conversation about what happens during emergencies, we've had long expanded conversations about that. During evacuations, the gate will be open. The fire department, police department can open the gate at will. And they're going to be working out a process. So like on the 4th of July, it'll be open. On the big holidays, when we have lots of traffic, it'll be opened as well. So those conversations have already taken place, and this board knows that.
So what happens when water whatever decide? Indigo 2 decides to go and ask for a map amendment and put in a gate.
Their roads are going to be dedicated as public, and before we allow them to.
They haven't even started. So we're making assumptions that are 10 years into the future, and we believe it's going to happen. We trust the developer. to do what they say they're going to do.
We have.
They
checks and
can't get the
balances
final
in-
plat map anymore. They can't, if, Wendell, tell me if I'm wrong on this, please. Under the UDO changes, they can't get the final plat approval to sell homes until this is done now. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so the problems that we've had for the first three that Alderman Mosteller talked about, those are problems that exist and we haven't figured out a solution for them. But future problems about those roads, they're not going to hold up a $700 to $1 billion project because they don't want to put an extra layer of asphalt on.
I think that we've been muddying the waters with basically some false equivalencies, like Old Southport Way. That's a loop. You know, you go
I
in
would
there,
just-
it doesn't
that
take
was-
you anywhere except back where you started.
That was
So
the
it's-
example we were given for Gates. That's why I used that.
Understood.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we can't think of this the same way. And Fodale, I don't recall that anybody living on Fodale ever came here and said, please gate this road.
Well,
What they did say was, please enforce speed.
Yes, and to your point, you're exactly right. You are helping me so much. So, Old Southport was never intended for connectivity. It could have been. It could have had a, blowout right over to Mark's house.
Long ago,
But it wasn't meant for that. It wasn't developed for that. What's that? There was. It's not there now, right? So it wasn't developed for connectivity, and this community was.
And, let's get down to what this is really about. Should they be able to gate one of the exits and entrances to their neighborhood? It involves a UDO change, which is the motion on the floor. So the issue is, do we want to force them to allow people to drive, anybody who wants to drive right through? And we've heard plenty of testimony to the effect of the speed, the blowing stop signs, et cetera. Or do we not? And I think that it is a pretty clear-cut case that they have the right to do this.
Chief, do you mind answering a few questions about? So, with regards to, have you gone in there and done any studying of the complaints or anything like that?
We have in the past. We've done stationary patrol.
Chief, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to ask you to go to the mic.
So, yes, we have done over the past. I don't have it before me, but we have, when we get calls about speed and concerns in neighborhoods, Fodale. We just got one over the weekend. I got an email from somebody on Stewart Avenue, so we do stationary patrols. We have a sign that also monitors that, so we take that information and look at it and evaluate it.
Have we done any of that specifically in Cades Cove?
Recently, we have not. No, I don't believe we have. Now, we have since there have been, it's been 6 years ago we had a document. When I first became the police chief, we had to sit down about some things going on in there. So we did some studies, had some officers go in and do stationary patrols and things like that to slow down and evaluate what was going on. Then when we got this trailer purchased, I think we've had it in there maybe once to try to count cars and do different things like that.
Any other, do you have something, ma'am?
Well, and finally, this, I'm on a quote from our planning director, who Wendell's doing an apt job standing in for. The planning director emphasized that interconnected streets provide safe and efficient routes that function independently and promote multiple modes of transportation, such as walking and biking and golf carts, and the frequency and autos, for that matter, and the frequency and length of trips and the amount of time on major roads is reduced, minimizing the impacts of future development and the environment. So I just want to say that was out of our other packet.
On the other hand, our planning director did not say interconnectivity of private roads.
streets. This is part of a plan. We're looking at the plan. This was planned this way for the good of the city.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Alderman Carroll, make sure that I say this correctly. If a vote in favor of your motion would mean no gate. Is that correct, sir?
I don't know what it means, but the motion on the floor is to deny the land use. The motion to deny is to deny the land use consistency statement and zoning map amendment.
So, Mr. Manager, can you confirm that a vote in favor of this motion would be a no gate?
That's correct.
Okay. So,
It's written for us.
yeah. So now we have it clarified. All those in favor of the motion as it is, please raise your hand and say aye. Okay, it's 4-2.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, the next agenda item is the Old City Hall. Tom Z, are you here? Okay. Sorry.
Do you want a quick break since there's so much action?
Just hold on for just a second. All right, sir.
Good afternoon. Here to talk about Old City Hall again, so we can move forward with the project. I know at the last meeting it was decided to be government use. This is just an update of what's happened since then and some more numbers and data that was requested. First off, back in January, Chief Coring and I met with Mosley Architects and we walked through the building. This is the first walkthrough Mosley's had of the building. That was because of the environmental abatement that was going on. It wasn't safe to go in. It now is, so they were able to actually walk through the building, get a sense of it in their head while talking to the chief about what his needs were. The outcome of that was that they determined it had sufficient capacity for a police department, both current and future needs. They prepared some preliminary drawings on that and a cost estimate for what it would cost to make it into a police station. Those numbers and those plans are in your packet. Getting into the overall space needs of the building, in Mosley's report that was done last year, the current space needs for the police department was 7,151 square feet and going up to 8,600 square feet in 2044. These space needs included a 35% internal circulation factor. They also included 800 square feet of a sally port. The sally port is not part of the existing building. It would be something that would be added on should the police require it in the future. So taking off that 800 square feet, the current needs of the police department, the current needs would be 6,300 square feet, and in 2044, 7,800 square feet. And once again, these include a 35% internal circulation rate. Old City Hall is approximately 8,500 square feet, so they would fit. Mosley Space Needs also includes both a training room and a 30-seat multi-purpose room for the police. These spaces will be the courtroom, which will also be the Board of Aldermen, Planning Board, Board of Adjustment, and any other committee meetings rooms that there may be. So that covers why Mosley felt it would work for a police station. One of the other things that I was asked to look into is, could it be used for administrative space? In the Mosley report, they listed the current administrative space needed for the city is just over 7,700 square feet currently, and 8,800 in 2044. Now, once again, Old City Hall is approximately 8,500 square feet. 1,800 square feet of that is a courtroom, so you can't put offices and people in there, leaving 6,700 square feet of office space available for the building, which is less than the currently needed administrative staff space of 7,700 square feet. So, that concludes what I had.
Are there any questions of Tom Z?
Yeah, is Mosley not here? I thought we were having Mosley, because I have a lot of questions for Mosley.
No, Mosley was not available Thursday or today to be here.
Well, then I would vote to table this till we have Mosley in front of us, because they're the architectural expert.
There's actually no motion on the floor here.
Well, I know,
We're not
but
moving
my
forward.
discussion, I need Mosley here for the discussion, because there's a lot of, I don't think you want to answer about the vestibule and then why are they going, you have to go through the gun cleaning and bag and tag room to get to the shared office space to get to the sergeant's office.
That's possibly something the chief can answer.
I think these are architectural conversations. My other thing is the current courtroom 1,800? I was under the impression it was 2,400, the current one. This is a reduced.
That is a reduction of the current, yes.
Right, so I really would like to have the architect here that has come up with this plan to try to make sense out of this.
So are you making a motion that in the March meeting, we bring the architect in?
Sure. Table this until then, if that's okay.
There's no tabling. We just add that to the agenda. And yeah. And I guess, Alderman Mosteller will have it on the agenda. I have some questions about it, but there are lines on a wall, and moving this and moving that. I'm less concerned about whether or not we can double some people up like the real world does, or does everybody have to have their own office? And those questions we can talk to in March. Maybe we could help the architect out by writing our questions down so that they have some idea of what we're going to be asking. But certainly we can put this on hopefully the Monday meeting, if that would be okay with you. Okay? And Tom Z, if you would check with Mosley to see if that would be applicable.
Let me confirm their availability for each of those meetings before we go and lock that in.
But while Tom Z is here from the board, is there anybody else have any questions right now?
I don't have a question, but I do think that it's important for us to recognize the historical aspects of this structure as we continue to move forward, and really trying to make sure that it's back to what it was. The two wings on either side, I would like us to try to make those look better. And they're freaking ugly. But a previous architect did some work on that to make it look a heck of a lot better. Brought in bigger windows, much less like what it is today. So that's my only. So I would ask you once again let's write that down so we can have that thing. But did I hear you correctly? This drawing shows the courtroom being smaller than it currently is?
Slightly smaller, yes.
Okay. All right, so we'll put that on the agenda for Monday, for that Monday, if we can get them here, Thursday if we can't, and we'll move forward with it then. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
The next issue is the North Carolina Wildlife Sunny Point property. Ben Solomon?
Am I picking up now? Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Board, for giving me a chance to come and speak towards the Southport White Springs acquisition. Find my clicker here. Thank you. So to start off with, this is a very, very important acquisition to our agency. It's core to our mission. It checks all the boxes, which we'll get into here in a minute. But to start off with today, I wanted to talk about why is it important to conserve land. This is a 30,000-foot question for us, but for us as an agency, it's important to conserve land for a majority of reasons. Starting off, it's core to our mission. Our mission is to conserve North Carolina's wildlife resources and their habitats to provide programs and opportunities that allow hunters, anglers, and boaters and other outdoor enthusiasts to enjoy wildlife-associated recreation. So first, when we assess a property, we try to make sure that it's going to be core to our mission. Our second layer of assessment, we look at these 4 categories here. And we decide whether or not that property, whether that acquisition checks these boxes. We purchase land to protect populations, we purchase land to protect habitat, we purchase land to expand our public lands, which are our game lands, as well as creating public access. What's really unique about the Southport White Springs tract is it checks all 4 of those boxes for us. When looking at property, sometimes we'll pursue a tract if it's creating public access, and that alone. Sometimes we'll pursue a property when it's only protecting habitat. So to start off with, we've got a map here of the Southport White Springs tract. This is a 427-acre acquisition. Probably hard to see from where you're sitting, but the part of the property that we'll be purchasing is outlined in red. The 2 carve-outs that will account for the parcels that the city and county would like to retain are indicated in yellow, which totals about 14 acres. So this tract will be in addition to our existing Green Swamp game land, which is adjacent to Matsu there, just across the street. And that tract of Green Swamp game land is currently an archery-only game land, and it's open to the public 6 days a week. The significance of this property isn't just that it's going to be a game land addition expanding our public lands. It's not just because it's expanding our public access, but this tract is extremely biodiverse. It is very ecologically significant. It's a very fragile ecosystem that we have a high interest in conserving and managing in perpetuity. To speak a little more in detail about this biodiverse and ecologically significant property, it's home to one of 7 Carolina gopher frog populations. 7 that exist here in North Carolina. It's also home to several other non-game species, including the eastern chicken turtle, as well as the red-cockaded woodpecker, as well as a suite of other non-game and game species. The adjacent swing tract of Green Swamp Game Land is a reintroduction site for the federally listed or federally endangered magnificent ram's horn snail. Our staff have been on the property owned by the city. We felt there is very strong potential to reintroduce the magnificent ram's horn there on the main pond in the northwest corner of the tract. One thing I'd like to note and spend a little bit of time on, I mentioned that this is a very fragile ecosystem. Any industry, any hydrology altering activity will undoubtedly change the nature of the habitat that's currently on the tract. So any mining, Any wells that alter the water table will have a detrimental impact on this one of 7 Carolina gopher frog populations. To speak more about the nuts and bolts of the process that's remaining, this acquisition has received final approval from our NCWRC Board of Commissioners. It is scheduled for Council of State review and approval in early March. We have applied for and been awarded 3 separate grants, federal and state grants, to purchase the property at appraised value of $637,535. One of the funding sources that we have received, the NC Land and Water Fund, does require that we have an updated survey before closing on the property. So that's one reason for needing an updated boundary survey. The other reason we're hiring a surveyor is to complete the 2 subdivisions for parcels being retained by the city in the northwest corner, as well as the 4-acre parcel on the southern boundary for the property to be retained by the county. Some good news, we finally contracted a surveyor. We had a hard time finding a surveyor that was willing to take on this property. That's not uncommon for Brunswick County. It's a problem we've been having statewide. This surveyor is actually coming from Troy, North Carolina, from our southern Piedmont to complete the survey. But he was on site last week. He's making good progress. We have an estimated completion date of mid-March from that surveyor. We went ahead and ordered title work, so title work has been contracted. Title work is underway. We expect a completion time of around mid-March for the title work as well. And to speak a little bit of our items needed to close on the property, we will need a complete boundary survey. We'll need that Council of State approval. We'll need a title report and a review by the Attorney General's office. And once we have those 4 items in hand, we will be able to go ahead and send the property to close. We estimate that late April, mid-May is a realistic timeline to get all of our ducks in a row and send the property to close, which brings up the topic of today's conversation, the option agreement extension. We feel the extension is critical in order for us to have success in conserving this property. Without the extension, we'll be up against a tight timeline, tight window. So the extension, I believe, and I'm not sure if it's been circulated amongst the board, but the extension would move our option expiration date from March 21st, 2024 to July 31st, 2025. Sorry, that's a typo there. March 21st, 2025 to a new expiration date of July 31st, 2025, with the closing to occur on or before September 5th, 2025. And that September 5th date would be the final day that we could close with this extension. As I mentioned before, we're optimistic that we would be able to close on the property early May, mid-May, even sooner if the title work comes back clean and clear, and if the survey is complete sooner than ahead of time or ahead of schedule. So with that, I'd like to open up to any questions the board or Mr. Mayor may have.
Does the board have any questions?
Yes. You're referring to this as game lands. Does that mean that you will allow hunting?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Limited to what?
So this tract would be added to our green swamp game land. The adjacent tract here is what we refer to as the Swain tract. It is archery only for deer. It's open to the public 6 days a week. So it would be an archery only game land.
No shotguns.
Correct.
Was the reason the Swain tract was archery only because of the size of the tract?
I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm not sure why that designation was made for the Swain tract. I'll defer to our Chief, Darren Barnes.
It's primarily due to its proximity to Matsu, which is the same for this property that we'd be attaining.
Thank you.
Can you say that again?
It's because it's right beside Matsu, the military ocean terminal Sunny Point.
Matsu doesn't want guns next door.
Oh, did I say it wrong? Oh, my bad. That's my bad. It's beside the military facility because it's conjunction to the military facility that it is archery only, and this track would be looked at the same way.
We heard earlier from a speaker that talked about people hunting with guns in there. Do we have any way or any mechanism in our wildest dream that we could enforce no shotgun hunting or no rifles? Only thing would be archery.
That would be achieved through NCAC rules and regulations, but yes, sir, we could achieve that objective through enforcement.
I believe Matsu has gone to escort people off there before.
I'm not
There is
sure, I'm sorry. Would that be a ranger that would do that? When you say you post a sign, okay, it's not supposed to be hunting now, but people hunt on it. So how are you going to achieve enforcement of that? Because you made a regulation, or do you have a mechanism to enforce the regulation?
Our law enforcement division and law enforcement officers, game wardens that work Brunswick County would enforce that regulation.
Okay, so we have game wardens in Brunswick County.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
I want to wait till everybody's done. Is everybody done? Sir, this has been a year. And in that time, you've been holding on to the money. This is a business. We're in the business. So you've been making money off that money, and we're not going to get that money that you've been making off the money. And during this past year, none of those things could have been done before this?
So there is a process, and until we have phase 2 approval, which is our final approval from the NCWRC board, we cannot send the property for Council of State approval. We can't send the property out for title work, and we can't spend the money on the survey until we have our final approval. So there are dominoes that have to follow before we can order certain steps.
So I would ask the board to consider, it's a board decision, to consider postponing this decision until the March Thursday meeting so that we could get more information on the unique places to save. And this came up just this morning. I didn't want to catch people off guard, but it just came up this morning in which I was talking to multiple mayors in this area. So Borland Springs had it, and they had, and I'm going to give you the superficial part because we need to do more research on it. This group goes out, they get the grants, they buy the property, in Borland Springs' case, 900 acres. Then once they get the property, they deed it over back to the jurisdiction to manage the conservancy. St. James is going to do it for about 457 acres right on 211, in which this group will buy it and did it. So it would fall, it is a conservancy when you get all done with it. So there's no basketball courts, there's no playgrounds, there's no anything. It's basically the same configuration as this. I don't know the pros and cons enough to be able to have that conversation now. And I would ask that we wait for 30 days to get more information to see where we're going, because this has not been a high priority for the state of North Carolina to take a year to go do this. And so another 30 days shouldn't hinder the whole thing. They can continue with what they're doing. We're not pulling it off. I'm not suggesting for a moment that we pull out of the agreement. I'm just saying perhaps there are other options that we may want to take since it's taking so long.
We met the unique places to save folks when they sought our endorsement, so to speak, of their acquiring that 900 acres, which starts behind Tractor Supply and goes all the way down to BSL and connects up to an additional conservancy area. I don't recall that they said that they turn it over necessarily to a jurisdiction.
That was the conversation they had this morning.
Okay.
So what I'm asking for you to consider is just holding off on this decision for 30 days until we get all the information back. We can have a conversation with the mayor of Portland Springs. We can have a conversation with the mayor of St. James. What do they see as the pros and cons of going to this? What's the negative side of doing this? And then we can go forward. And at the same time, nothing's pulled off the table.
I appreciate all this dialogue. The deal is, this is wholly different than what you're talking about, because Wildlife already owns the 2 adjacent parcels of White Springs Natural Heritage Natural Area, of which we are the 3rd star, and we're actually the most significant. Y'all can stop me if I'm wrong, but we're the most significantly a valuable piece of the 3, so that then Wildlife gets our piece, then they manage it along with those pieces. They have to, you know that we did sand mining back and lost the $1.6 million grant because it had a conservation clause in it that we didn't adhere to. So they have to spend money to go and repair that damage once they own it. So there's nothing to wait on. This is absolutely the right thing to do for this parcel of property. Wait. Okay. So with that, I want to make a motion to extend the expiration date of the option agreement, parcel ID number 190000002, to a new expiration date of July 31st, 2025, with closing to occur on or before September 5th, 2025.
I would, before we go further, well, is there a second? Okay. I'd like to hear from Unique Places to Save, if they will do a presentation to us before we decide whether to extend or make any decision here. They were willing to come to us at least virtually.
Yeah, you know, we're not out of contract, so we would not be out of contract if we do what they're suggesting. We're still within contract. We still have the ability to extend it, and everybody here is agreeing that we'll have it on our Monday agenda, maybe? Whatever.
We'll have it on we could do it on the Monday agenda, so it's the quickest.
We don't have a second. We got to wait for the motion.
So right now.
I'll second it just for the purpose of conversation.
All right.
So what I would say is they're spending, I don't know, $25,000. I don't know how much a survey like this costs, but just based on the one with my backyard cost, I can say that must be a whole. So they're investing in all of this, and we're hoping that they'll continue with this contract, but we're saying now we're going to entertain someone else. You do that at the end of it, at the end of the contract if it doesn't work. And I'm just telling you, they're the ones that are going to manage it. They're going to do the burns. They're going to do all the things that need to be done to manage it. They're going to restore the damage that we created. So to get somebody else to buy it, to give it back to us, and it needs to go into conservation in perpetuity with wildlife because it's part of that whole system there. So anyway.
It may end up going there. 30 days, and it won't even be 30 days because it's a Monday meeting, is just to get all the data. Because as you remember, when this was first proposed, it was a one-stop shop. We never put this out for bid. We never looked at all the other conservancies. We never did anything. We went to this group and this group only. And now, they've had a year to play in this. They couldn't find a surveyor. I find that almost unbelievable. So that is all I'm suggesting that you consider is that 3-week period to see what the pros and cons would be. And if the cons outweigh the pros of this, then we should move forward with this. No, because I heard from several different mayors who said, this is a great deal and you should look at it. And so we haven't, all we're doing is postponing this decision for 3 weeks.
There's certainly
Can
been
we-
plenty of times when we find information at the last moment to educate us and help us make good decisions. I am Mike. The other thing that I just want to remind everyone is we are selling this property significantly less than what we purchased it for, regardless. So the city of Southport is making a huge investment into the conservation of this piece of land. I think 30 days for us to look at making sure we're doing the best thing for the citizens makes a whole lot of sense. And the fact that we have been very good at doing one thing at a time, and it's time for us to do 2 things at a time and make sure we're doing things to move us forward.
Nothing changes as far as what's going. You guys are going to go on asking for an extension. Why can't this, Alderman Kelly said, why can't we do 2 things at a time and see if there's something else out there? I'm all in favor of what's going on. But if there's something else out there, I'd like to hear what it is and better educate myself.
We are still under contract with them. We are not reneging on our contract.
Can we compromise and maybe come together with a motion that would allow us to move forward with what Alderman Mosteller is suggesting, with the exception that something could change?
I don't think so. And you know that too, sir. So it's either we get 30 days to review other options, or we go with the motion. I don't know how you go with the motion and then yank it out from underneath them. Any other comment? So the motion on the table is to go with the extension, and there's a second. We've had conversation on that. All in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye and raise your hand. So it's 3-3, and thus I will vote against it. And we'll try to...
So my question to you is then, are y'all going to continue to pursue this?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We'll continue forward with the surveyor that was out there last week. And all grant due diligence, we'll continue forward with that. As long as the city agrees to uphold the current option agreement, we'll continue forward, and we'll do everything in our power to purchase the property by the option deadline.
Thank you.
And I will make the best commitment I can that we will get you an answer as quickly as we... I do not want this to drag on. It's unfair to all sides.
Are you, I apologize, are you suggesting that you might be able to close based on the date currently in the contract?
It would be very difficult. The stars would have to align. It would be, we're up against a tight deadline with the current option agreement, but in our eyes, it was prudent to go ahead and request an extension in advance of the option expiration, so.
We've waited a year now to ask for an extension. I don't think another couple of months would really matter that much. So I think we should go forward with what we've just decided.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The next type is the concession agreements.
Good afternoon. So I am here today to present to you all the 2 concessions agreements that the city has with the Southport Historical Society. Both the concessions agreement for Old Jail, which is considered a lease because they get the use of the entire property, and then the concessions agreement for the Susie Carson Research Room, which is a archival space and research space that they utilize within Fort Johnston. Both of these agreements, it's time for their updating. Yeah, do you guys have any questions?
Not really. Thank you so much. The only thing I would say is I think in item 11, keep the premises, I think that's supposed to be a capital P.
Okay.
Because it refers to just that room.
Got it.
So, but otherwise, I'm prepared to make a motion.
I do have a question. The library is a county library, and yet the building is a city building. Am I correct?
I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't believe so.
The Harper Library is a county building?
Yeah. We don't have a lease.
Okay. What is our role with the Susie Carson room then? Is it not the county's role?
No, ma'am. So the Southport Historical Society is a local to Southport, North Carolina nonprofit whose mission is to preserve the history of Southport specifically. There is a wider county historical society, but that they are friends with our historical society, but not one and the same. So this is local to us.
Is this room right over here in this building?
It's at Fort Johnston.
Is it Fort Johnson? Not
It's
at the
not
library?
at the library.
Okay.
The Susie Carson room is in the library.
There's a Susie Carson research room located right next door in Fort Johnston, and that is an archival and research space.
Well, darn. I didn't know that.
Well, ma'am, I have a question for you. So currently, or at least for a long time while Phil was alive, he ran the program, did he not?
So that, when Phil Fravel was alive, he ran the shop out of the Fort Johnson Visitor Center. In talks with the Historical Society, they have chosen to leave the gift shop and the running of such out of the concessions agreement. So that is no longer part of the conversation. What this concessions agreement is for is just the Susie Carson Research Room.
So city staff is not going to man this. This is the volunteers at the facility.
So the Susie Carson Research Room does not have dedicated hours. It is not run by city staff. It is run by Southport Historical Society volunteers, which are even different than the volunteers that the city has who runs the visitor center.
And I have to apologize. My concern was that we, the city, were taking over that room to do that work. And I was concerned about how far we could stretch our employees.
No, sir. I do appreciate the concern, but this concession agreement would encourage the status quo. It would not be changing anything city staff-wise.
Thank you, ma'am.
And then I have a question that is not really on this so much, but the visitor center gift shop.
Yes.
It is run by volunteers.
Currently not being run at all. So this is separate completely from the agreements that we have with the Historical Society, but after, unfortunately, Phil's passing, the Historical Society and my department talked about my department taking back over the gift shop and starting to run it through the city. Those were talks being had with the previous city manager. Unfortunately, by January 1, an agreement had not been made yet, and so instead the Historical Society pulled out, and we currently do not have a gift shop next door.
So are we looking for volunteers to begin running the gift shop?
No, ma'am. All of our volunteers are still with us. They're doing fantastic jobs, still talking to the visitors every day. We just unfortunately do not have a gift shop at the moment.
Do we have a process we can go to find some volunteers to do this?
Again, this is a little different than the current agreement, but none of our volunteers have left us. They're doing a fantastic job, still coming in on their scheduled shifts. It's just that they no longer have a gift shop as part of their duties. They are now just talking to guests and sharing history of Southport.
Is there a way that we can help move that forward?
Why do we need, well, let's ask the question, why do we need a gift shop? Are we making significant income from this gift shop?
So the city has never traditionally made income. This was income that the Historical Society was previously making.
But they put it into the building. Their mission, their agreement with that store is that any profits went into the building. That's part of the original agreement with the federal whatever agreement, was that any kind of concessions like that went back into the building.
Correct. And just to bounce off of what Karen had to say, if the city decided that they wanted a gift shop in that space, if that was something that we move forward with, every dime made in the building would have to return to the building, whether that was exhibits or, you know, there's a lot of ways to spend that money within the building, but it would have to go back to the premises based on SHPO's standards.
So there's nothing that prevents the Historical Society in the future to starting a gift shop should they find it, that they want to do it, correct?
We would have to then make a separate agreement saying so.
Other than that, there's nothing that would prevent it, right?
Correct.
Okay, so this would not impact that either?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure that I understood that and that we weren't excluding that from
Absolutely.
the future.
No exclusions.
And the Historical Society fronted all the money. There was more involved with what they did. They fronted all the money for everything and really carried it.
What was the issue? Why were we unable to come to an agreement?
I think that maybe a good answer to that would be the barrier of time. When Phil's passing happened, it was quite sudden, and then we had the holidays, and the Historical Society really wanted to have things in place by January 1 for sales tax reasons. But either way, they were uninterested in continuing the gift shop at this time. They felt like it was beyond their bandwidth without Phil.
I'm sorry. I've lost track here, and I apologize. Was there a motion to do this? I don't think so.
I can make a motion. I move to approve the Susie Carson Research Room concession agreement between the City of Southport and the Southport Historical Society, which grants Southport Historical Society exclusive use of the easternmost exhibit room in the Garrison House for archival storage and research in accordance with the terms outlined in the agreement, and number 11 with the big P, on premises.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
And so now we need to do the old jail as well. That agreement is also open. The only change you will notice within that is there were two suggestions made to me by the city attorney. One was that we be more clear about the insurance and liability that we require them to hold for their lease. And then also that we shorten the term to a 5-year from a 10-year, just so we have more opportunities to look at things like the insurance that they're carrying and that sort of thing. But other than that, it is as previously presented.
Thank you for explaining
Thank
that,
you,
because
ma'am.
I wanted to know why the lease was so short.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm used to seeing sort of the 9 years, 9 month
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, it was more about insurance and making sure that we are doing our due diligence to making sure that they are following up with the status quo for insurance and that sort of thing.
Do we now have the details of the insurance that they're carrying?
Yes, if you look at the lease agreement itself,
Okay.
the detailed insurance is what they are currently carrying and has been looked over by the city attorney.
Mr. Manager, you may not know the answer to this question. Who's in charge of looking at all those forms for all the variety of different buildings that we lease for $1 a year?
Well, we've never had a formalized review process other than when it comes up every time like this. So it's something that we'll need to get a process together between my office and the city attorney, and then whoever such as Elena, the department that handles that. So I think it's good that we continue to review our leases that we have.
So while we have leases for sometimes open-ended and sometimes for a good number of years, we don't get a yearly update. I'm just confirming. We do not get a yearly update to find out that they've actually paid the insurance and all the things that the liability and all of that.
We do not know that I've seen.
Well, I look forward to your looking into that topic.
Absolutely.
Well, as it relates to this, so I didn't ask the question properly, I don't think, because it says they're carrying fire hazard and casualty. They're required to do that?
Yes.
How do they insure? I didn't know you could insure a building that you don't own.
So there is some conversation that I've gone back with the Historical Society. It was difficult to get, but because of our agreements like this, that's how they are able to obtain it, because they know that they are the sole use of the building, and then they open it for tours as well.
And what value are they insuring it for? No. That's
so for this, at the jail, yeah, it's the entirety of the building, and it's written as Southport Historical Society must carry fire hazard, casualty, and liability insurance at $1 million per occurrence and $2 million aggregate, and indemnify the city.
So my question again is to the manager, is when we do these other buildings, like that building is worth more than $1 million, we're going to have to make sure that the insurance reflects the true value of the building and its replacement. Okay. And this was a good find, that we need to have that policy and procedure put in place. All good stuff. Thank you.
Oh,
Did we approve the motion on the?
No, we didn't make the motion yet.
Go ahead.
I move to approve the lease agreement as presented between the City of Southport and the Southport Historical Society for the management, maintenance, and operation of the old jail building.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor say aye and raise your hand, please. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, ma'am. The last topic is, when I put this on the agenda for the UDR updates, some of this has already been set into motion. Some of it has not, so just for the audience's edification. The UDO, Karen, was 2020, right? I got that? Yeah, 2020. So what happened is that policies and procedures we're building out. And we didn't realize that every year, we didn't realize that every year the legislation could change, but we never updated it. So our UDO is out of sync in a number of different places. One of them that I thought was pretty interesting is that we could ask for you to go to jail for 30 days if you put the bush in the wrong spot in the right away. And that was actually eliminated several years ago, so there's a number of things that need to be done. However, the manager's office is taking care of that aspect of it. There's a number of other issues, stormwater. Tom Z has given me an update on some of that. Most of it's in some form of forward progress. And then there's the other outstanding issues. So I'd like to get the feel of the board about putting a small work group together that would be staff. There's a couple of people couple of citizens who are really subject matter experts on this, and a couple of elected officials to start the process of finally getting everything together that we think we need to look at. And what does that look like? It may mean that we need to go out for a contract. It may mean a lot of different things, but I don't know what it means. But all I know is we've talked about it for a long time, and I think we need to look at how we do that. Now, I could just do that because the power of the mayor allows that, but if there's no will of the board to do that, I don't want to waste the time and the money to do that. So I'm asking you for your basically your nod of your head or something that says, should we go forward with that?
I think we should do it, certainly, but as for, do a request for volunteers. We advertise it for a couple of weeks, see what citizens would like to help us out with that. And, I'm sure we've got 6 aldermen who'd like to jump in and do it.
No, I'm not concerned about picking the alderman now. And I have a couple of people have already come to me that are subject matter experts. Play it off the board. The board should have some input into how those logical people to do this type of thing. And we have the staff, though.
I'm confused.
Yeah.
Are you talking about you want to convene a group to update the UDO?
No, to look at the UDO, to work with the manager, to look at what's out of date, what needs to be done, prioritize those things, and start moving forward. It will not be as comprehensive as a whole new UDO, but the low-hanging fruit we could start addressing relatively quickly.
I think we just assign that to staff. Staff should be able to go through the UDO. That's part of their job, is to recommend updates and that sort of thing. If you're talking about statutorily, the statutory changes and that sort of thing.
Well, I would, but
that's a staff function.
We have seemed to have missed a few things along the way.
Well, just because what happens is that happens when we updated it in 2020, there were legislative things in the old UDO that we corrected. That happens, and so all we need is staff, really, to say to staff on an annual or a session basis, I think it's a session basis, review session law and propose update, because these are text amendments, propose updates and go through the process. I think this is really a staff function.
I think when you get a couple of people, not a big group of people, you get a better cross-pollination of thought processes in doing that. And I'm looking to see, we'd make a pretty, a sunset clause on this whole thing, 6 months, whatever it is, and get some people to input them, because I've been hearing from citizens for 3 years now about their concerns about the UDO. I have not seen the city move forward on those UDO issues at all, and I'm trying to jumpstart the whole process.
Well, have they talked to staff and they haven't gotten a response? Then they need to contact staff.
Yes, the answer to your question is yes. It's unfortunate, but that's where we are.
Shouldn't that go through the city manager and have him direct the staff to do that?
I think that for us to ask for citizen input is always an opportunity. I think that, but we have to direct the manager to do that, I believe.
I'm a little confused, because part of it sounds like we want citizen input, and some of it sounds like we just need to update the statutory guidelines that could,
I think that there's a few citizens, not because I just want to get involved in the program, but who have subject matter expert in this. I have no problem if the will of the board is to have them come to the manager and work through the manager to start doing that. I have no particular heartache on that. Are you good with that, sir?
Yeah, I am. I think there's kind of two conversations that we can pursue. I think there's the legislative changes that have been made in the past that we just need to update. One, like the ordinance concern, we can certainly bring that forward very quickly. And then as we identify things like Tom Z has done with stormwater, bring those forward too. So I'm certainly capable of working with staff, and as citizens have those concerns, to give them to me.
Then I will direct them to you, sir. This was just more like a discussion to kickstart the whole program.
do we have I don't know the answer to this, maybe, do we have a timeline on how often we update the UDO?
5 years ago.
Isn't it supposed to be every 5 years?
Typically, it's that kind of, we did a major update in 2020. Mark will remember that. And so that it could be that we task the planning board with going section by section and reviewing and updates. Remember, we sent in a bunch of updates that we would like to see, 6 or 8 months ago. I don't know if they filtered to the planning director. I don't know if the emails got to the planning director or not, because it would have to go there before it went for any planning board input. But I'm sure that Mo can find those things and look at those. But it's a budgetary item to update the UDO. We hired Wes McLeod to shepherd it, and the planning board, their whole committee worked on it. So
I sat through every single one of those meetings, so I understand the complexity of doing an entire UDO rewrite. Something less than that. There's some real low-hanging fruit that we chat about. We have good intentions, but we never seem to move it forward. And so I'm looking for helping all of us get focused, the staff get focused, and if it's just every quarterly, they come to us, and I think the manager has a good point, and you guys have a good point. We let the manager work with the staff and the citizens, and their mission is, however the manager wants to do it, that they keep bringing stuff to us that we then kick to the planning board for action.
And maybe a quarterly review is a good idea. I like that from our perspective, because we hear from citizens and conversations.
Because Alderman Musso, you bring up a good point. We did write up a bunch of stuff, and nothing.
We wrote up stuff that we want to see the planning board review and make recommendations on, things that we pretty much agreed, I know, and it fell into a black hole.
Right, so this whole conversation is just to open up the black hole, put a little flashlight down there, and let's have that conversation.
But we're talking about two things that we have asked for that are not necessarily legislatively mandated, that we haven't kept up with. So, and the League of Municipalities at the end of each legislative session does give us a whole list of the things that have been passed that affect us.
Alderman Davis, that's already in the works. The manager's got that under control. They're moving forward with those legal things that we have to do. Okay. So he's got that in his quiver.
Yeah, I think going back to Alderman Mosteller's idea, I don't know if quarterly I want to I'll make that commitment for y'all. But
I'm going to leave that to the manager to figure out what the best course of action is.
But again, it goes back to this idea. We had to pass it, and now we're trying to figure out what's in it, and we're coming back and we should have been proactively looking at a height restriction in the business district, and then we waited for something to come to us and then change it. That shouldn't happen.
I think the interim manager has it.
Sometimes you don't know what's broken until it's in front of you.
All right, the next topic is the city manager's report.
Well, I'll just be brief and say it's been a great couple of days. Yeah, that's right. Getting started, working for everybody. So I've had great meetings with staff and community members and moving the organization forward. So I look forward to doing that this coming week in the first official week, and I look to continue to work with each of you to make that happen for all of our residents, businesses, and community members. Thank you.
I had 47 things that I was going to talk about, but I decided to cut this short. I'm going to say the local government, state government meeting in Raleigh is on the 26th. At least two of us are going to go there. They have asked for some information on a couple of different projects. And I would like to make sure that between now and the 26th, if you have any thoughts that you want to convey, that you let me know what those are. The Mayor Pro Tem's going. Mark, are you going? I don't. Okay. Okay. But I want to make sure that we at least voice our concerns or what our wants are, and then we'll have to see how that went. I did find it interesting. I went to Duplin, is that the county? Duplin County? Duplin County the other day for a rodeo. And, yeah, they have, that's the only thing I know that's there is a winery. It's a farming community, good solid people. They have buildings in that town, the government buildings in that town are spectacular. Everything's new. And they have a convention center type thing, I guess they're more like an auditorium type thing, all brand new. All paid for by the state of North Carolina. So there's money to be had out there, and I thought that was very interesting. They must have a half a dozen government buildings that are spectacularly pretty and functional, that are all sitting on a piece of, in a town, in a county that I don't know what their population is, but it's less than Brunswick County. And so with that, I will go to the board's comments, and I'll start with Alderman Way.
Nothing to add other than what we've already covered.
Alderman Spencer.
Yes, sir. So from what this meeting today, the comprehensive plan, what we want to be in the future, decides how we move forward. And we've all got to come to a hard conclusion as to which direction we want to move forward. As we see in our national politics, our country is moving towards more of a protective state, blocking our borders, protecting ourselves, taking away giving to the outside, and turning inward. I think that that's a fair assessment of what's happening around in the nation, and we're no different. We've got to decide, are we going to have our arms wide open, or are we going to be protective about our properties, shut them down to traffic, and keep them for ourselves? And it has to be a decision not by Mark or Alderman Kelly or any one individual. We have to come to the conclusion of what is right for the future of Southport. And it is hard to determine. I am conflicted by connectivity. It's a double-edged sword. The more connectivity you have, the more we allow people to flow through our roads that don't pay the bills. And it is a tough position to be in. I'm proud that people come to my hometown, but I'm tired. It's sort of like visitors. After a while, you want them to go home and maybe stay there. So we have to, in the comprehensive 2050 plan, we've got to have more difficult conversations. And if I'm the only one that wants to sort of slow down, then maybe I need to be quiet. But I want people to come out and speak their mind about what they want to see in Southport. I'm not so excited about the tourism economy. It doesn't feed anyone. It doesn't provide sustainable wage jobs for anyone. The only sustainable wage jobs we have are government, and they are low-paying jobs. So all these decisions have to come from what we really want to be. And making decisions. And I think that 2050 comprehensive plan, we need to step up and look harder at that and be more detailed and be more intent as to what we want in the future. And that's about all I want to say right now.
Alderman Kelly.
We have another new Southport resident. I want to congratulate my brother and sister-in-law on their daughter, Palmer, who was born last Thursday. So there's a new Azado in town. And we're really excited. They're doing well back home and getting adjusted to new parent life. And then I want to welcome Noah to the table with us. We've seen him across the way now for a number of months, and I just want to tell you how excited I am, and I think we all have quite a vote of confidence in you, and we're excited to watch you help us move forward and without having a break in anything that we're doing. I think there's value in the fact that you know what's been going on in our city, and you'll make this transition for us as a board, as well as for our staff and all the citizens and businesses, as easy as possible to keep us moving forward. So thank you.
May I add one thing to that? Mr. Manager, you made a comment several weeks ago, laser focused. I think that applies, and you've already started doing it.
Alderman Davis.
Yes, very briefly. I've read and heard a bit about last Thursday night when we came out of closed session and appointed Noah Saldo as our interim city manager. And then there was some reaction about what happened to the previous city manager. Was there lack of transparency about whatever happened to him and so on? Well, that was, it occurred in closed session, and our city attorney was with us and advised us that this was a personnel matter that we did not have the right to say anything about. It would be up to him if and how he wanted the fact that he had tendered his resignation, how he would make that public. And the next day, ultimately, there was a press release from the city, which he had approved. So there was no lack of transparency. I mean, we specifically, in closed session, said, aren't we supposed to go out and announce that the current city manager had just offered his resignation and that we had accepted it? And our city attorney said no. So I do want to clarify that. We run all of the issues that could be even remotely questioned about transparency. We run it all by the city attorney.
Alderman Carroll.
I just wanted to say we had a great meeting today. This is how I thought we did. This is how it's supposed to play out. And Noah, you stepped up to the plate. We appreciate that very much. The mayor, this board are here to support you and to support our staff. So thank you for doing that.
Alderman Marcel.
Thank you, sir. I would just hope that the Cates Cove conversation will continue with regard to the roads, and staff is going to be available to them to answer any questions and to work with them in the future for possible road assumption if they would tender that as a concept. And welcome, Noah. Echo that, and that's it.
I entertain a motion to go in closed session under North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11.
So moved.
As a motion and a second, is there any conversation? Not hearing any. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. We're in closed session. I'd like to entertain a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, it's unanimous. We're out of closed session. I'd entertain a motion on the shoreline restoration issue.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Fox Rothschild as special shoreline stabilization attorney and approve the underlying contract not to exceed $40,000.
There's a motion and a second. Any conversation? Not hearing any. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. I'd entertain a motion regarding the interim manager's contract.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the interim city manager's contract.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any conversation? Not hearing any. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned.